Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am pumped up to be on the microphone with you all for episode number 67 of Rewire to Inspire. And number 67, just like all my other episodes, is one that is very near and dear to my heart and something that I am so passionate about, but something that I have a lot of personal experience with. And I think that anytime we can have personal experience with something and we can share from our heart, it really does just make it that much more impactful. And so my goal for today is to chat with you guys all about why it's so crucial to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people, why it's important that you don't forget your worth, why it's important that we need to have good, aligned, supportive, encouraging people in our life if we want to grow in any way, shape, or form. And also even outside of that, I realize that in a lot of my episodes, I preface on a growth journey, on a growth mindset and growing. And because that's the goal of my listeners, is to be on that journey, but also just to realize that you're worthy at any point in time of your life, whether you're running a business, you're an entrepreneur, you're not an entrepreneur, whatever it is, you are worthy of making sure that the people around you are lifting you up and not bringing you down. And so I'm super excited to jump into today's episode with you guys. I did just want to preface, because I can hear her clicking around in the background. Bailey, if you guys ever hear little clicky clacks in the background, that is my border collie, Bailey. And if you guys ever hear a little bell in the background, that is our cat, Minnie. I try my absolute best to censor them out and to close the door, but what are you going to do? They're cute, they're family, I love them so much, and they make this journey just a journey and just so exciting. So if you hear that, that is what that is going on in the background. But without further ado, let's dive into episode 67, all about why it's so crucial to surround yourself with the right people. So I'm sure you guys have all heard the famous statement, you are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, right? We've all heard that. We've heard that multiple times throughout our life, or I have anyway. But have you ever actually thought about it and realized like just how true it is? Like, how true is that you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with? And basically what that quote is saying is you will become like the 5 people that you surround yourself with, which makes sense in retrospect if you think about it. So for example, let's say you have a friend who's super into fitness, and then you have another friend who's a super successful entrepreneur, and then you have another friend who is studying and going to school. You'll likely feel unspoken pressure to do one of said things, to want to evolve, because we subconsciously try to be like those around us, whether we realize it or not. And so if you're surrounded by growth-oriented people, it's likely that a part of your brain is telling you, maybe we should work a little bit harder. Maybe we should push ourselves a little bit more. But on retrospect, if we're hanging out with a bunch of people who are okay with just drinking all the time and partying all the time and are okay being broke, okay spending all their money, don't really care about work, don't really have values in life, you'll likely statistically be less probable to take action because everyone around you is okay with being comfortable. And the reality is we can only grow as much as the people that we surround ourselves with, whether we want to admit or realize that for ourselves. And I know that this can be really hard when we get those hard truths, because when we've hung around certain people our whole lives and we get stuck in that, our heart is attached to that, right? And when we care about people, we don't really realize that they could potentially be holding us back and they could be potentially negatively affecting us But we often don't realize that because we're like, oh, it's just like my girlfriends or guy friends that I've hung out with for my whole life. Like, oh, they're harmless. But what if we're not realizing that that's just because we've become too comfortable? And I never like to pass judgment or really judge somebody else's story, because I think we all have a story and things we go through, and it's just unjust to say something about somebody else's story without knowing the inside scoop from an outside perspective. But I really witnessed this a lot when I moved to Alberta and then moved back to my hometown, of noticing that the same people were still hanging out, kind of doing the same things, going to the same places. And I was just like so curious about that, because my life had changed so much from the time that I left and came back, to the point that I don't even really talk to many people that I went to school with, or in fact, really any of them. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. And I don't think that it's a bad thing to still be in touch with those you went to school with. But are you hanging out with those people because you almost feel like after 15 years or X amount of years, you just feel obligated to? Do they actually contribute? And by contribute, I don't mean a monetary thing, but anything to your life. Do they lift you up? Do they push you to be your best? Do they give you hard truths? Do they tell you uncomfortable situations? Or have you just become too comfortable? And one particular instance sticks out for me personally. This is something I can talk about because, again, I don't like to talk about other people's situations because we never know the backstory of what's going on. But I remember really witnessing for myself for the first time 2 years ago when I began my personal development journey, that I had these two girlfriends that I had met when I moved out there, and we had been friends for 4 years. And so at the time, I didn't really have a lot of self-belief or self-esteem to think that I would be worthy of having other friends. And so I kind of just kept them around. And I noticed that as I started to grow, and as I started to get around other communities, and as I started to just open my mind and get into spirituality and self-love and focus on my mental health, I noticed that the things that they were saying, doing, acting, and being were just no longer in alignment. And I almost felt like this pressure that I had to still hang out with them because we were friends. But I noticed that every time that I would hang out with them, I wasn't talking about my goals. I wasn't talking about my dreams. I wasn't talking about how much I've grown. I wasn't talking about things that interested me. I was talking about things that, quite frankly, I didn't care about. And every time I would leave hanging out with those people, I would feel so depleted. I would feel not myself, not in flow, out of tune. I found myself complaining. I found myself being negative. I found myself eating foods I didn't want to eat. I found myself putting off going to the gym so we could hang out. And I was just really becoming a person that I didn't want to be anymore. And so the reason I'm so passionate about this subject is because I've taken the time to be in both scenarios, where I've been around people that I knew weren't good with me, but I stayed because it was comfortable. Then eventually I got the courage to have hard conversations, to leave those friendships, to spend time by myself. And I'm now getting around people that lift me up. And so anything I share, it's because I've seen both sides of it, and or I have hope that it can be different and belief that it can be different. But this is a subject that I think nobody wants to talk about because we're scared we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. Wow, my dog just freaked out in the background. She knew we were talking about her. But again, in those instances, we're so scared to hurt somebody's feelings, or so scared to let somebody down. We're so scared to lose a friendship. But what if in those friendships, we're actually losing touch with ourselves? What if in those friendships, you are limiting yourself and capping your potential? Because oftentimes when we're in those friendships that we know are toxic, it's because we can't imagine our life without those people. And I think that this is when boundaries come into play, because we can have people in our life that might just be that. They might just be those nostalgic family friends that we can't imagine our life without, but maybe it's that you're spending too much time around them. Maybe it needs to have more of a boundary of when you guys hang out, and when you hang out, what are the things that you're doing? What are the things you're talking about? Do you find yourself disconnecting from your true self around those people? Because I think that it's okay to honor for ourselves that people come into our lives for a reason and to teach us lessons. And it's not to disservice those people that come into our lives. It's recognizing, have we gotten to a point where those people are no longer in alignment? Are those people holding ourselves back from the truest version of ourselves that we have in our mind and that we're working so hard to become? And I think that having those conversations, can be really, really hard and uncomfortable, but I encourage you to ask yourself, would you rather have those really hard, uncomfortable conversations or remain in rooms and in friendships that don't make you feel good and make you feel icky? Because I know that I've lived there for a long time and I've had those relationships and they suck. Quite frankly, they suck and they're really hard. And those conversations are really hard. So I don't want to dismiss that. But in those instances, you really have two choices: to follow your heart and trust your gut, or to stay and be uncomfortable and be miserable and know that it's likely not going to get better. It's likely going to get worse, because that little voice inside of our head only gets louder because it's trying to tell us, hey, something's wrong, something's not in alignment, something needs to shift. But that is my first point for today, of asking yourself if you're surrounding yourself with the right person and the right people, because only you know the answer to that. And only you know the answer of how people make you feel. And only you know the answer if on your particular journey, if you're okay with having those friendships and relationships. So this is something that is going to be very, very unique to yourself. But it's so important that to recognize that if you want to grow and you want to maximize your life and you want to become the best version of yourself, you have to look at who and what you're surrounding yourself with. You have to. And I'm going to give two instances, and I've spoken about my old basketball coach before and how much he belittled me and caused me to lose touch with my identity, lost touch with myself, felt icky in my own skin, began to hate the sport of basketball, was then later diagnosed with PTSD, and I just began to see that that person didn't have my best interest at heart. And now I have a mentor and a coach who has my back through thick and thin and is able to tell me hard truths of, hey, you could be doing better there, and hey, you're doing really awesome in this arena. And so it's just crazy to me that I've only had my new coach. And of course, these are different types of coaches. One was for sport and one is a life coach. But still, nonetheless, that one human being can raise me up so much in such a short period of time, roughly 2-3 months. I've been coached by this person. And my life has changed. And that to me is not a coincidence, that getting in the right rooms and getting around the right people is in our control. But when we do that, we're able to actually get what we want in return. And this is also how the law of attraction works. Because if I had just stayed with those friendships and in those rooms and with those people that made me feel really crummy and really low self-worth, and I never removed that from my life, I know that the good now would not be here. Because in order to make room for new and to grow and to elevate, we have to be willing to part with the old. And that can be really, really hard and uncomfortable. And I spent almost a year, the last year, very alone, very isolated, very by myself. But I knew that I had so much internal belief that until a friendship gave me that same level of belief while hanging around with them, I knew I'd rather, quote unquote, have no friends than be around people that quite frankly made me feel like crap. Okay, so just know that the right people will encourage you. They will support you. They will understand your boundaries. They will respect your boundaries. And if they don't, they're not your people. It's so, this concept is so black and white, but I know that our feelings can get intertwined in the middle, because nobody wants to not have friends. That's not, quote unquote, cool in society's eyes to be home and working on yourself. But I've realized that that's because that's what's in alignment for me, is to grind it out. Tonight, it's a Friday evening right now, and I'm sitting here podcasting and researching and brainstorming and reading, and it's like, I freaking love it. I love it because it's in alignment. And if I have friends come into my life that are open to do the same thing, I know that that's in alignment. But I know that if it's just friends that want to go to the bar all the time and party and go out, I know that that's not right for me, and that's not the path that I'm trying to go down. And so these are, again, questions you can really only ask yourself, but people on similar missions will help to take you that much further, because they're able to hold you accountable. They're able to push you further. They're able to set the tone. They're able to, learn from each other. Hey, I'm doing this great thing and it's awesome. What are you doing? Oh, and I'm doing this, and learning from each other, which I think is so stinking cool, instead of just sitting down, drinking alcohol and gossiping about other people. And again, if that's your jam, that's cool. But do you really think that that's the highest level that you could possibly live in your life? Don't you think that it would be better to be around people that you talk about growth and excitement and your future lives and your goals and pushing each other and aspiring each other and helping each other grow? And I guess that this is one of those things that because I'm now in that headspace, I can't imagine living any other way. And I can't fathom having the mindset of just being okay with being treated like crap. And I'm just so done with friendships that make me feel belittled and unseen and unheard and unappreciated. Like, I'm just done with it. And I will simply just not put myself in those situations anymore. And if anybody else makes me feel like that anymore, I've done enough work. And of course, yes, it still hurts, but I've done enough work to recognize, my value is not seen here. And if you guys have ever heard the analogy about water bottles, you can go to your kid's soccer game and get a water bottle for 50 cents. And you can get the exact same water bottle at an NHL game for, I don't know, $4. But the water didn't change. What changed is the room in which it was. The value of it changed because of the circumstance of where you're buying it. So are you putting your worth at that elementary school level soccer game, or are you putting your worth at NHL level? And again, that's just an example to see how our worth can change, even though we're the same at the core, but no matter where we go, we're going to be valued differently. And often those that are envious, jealous, aspire to be like you, will be envious and will hold resentment towards you. And what I'm learning and what my coach is teaching me is that we don't get to control that. All we get to control is how we view that, how we feel about that, and what we do about that. Because for so long, I would say, why do all these women, why is there just this cycle of how women treat me in my life? And me and my coach dissected that, and we went through that, and we just kept coming on this one thing, because he asked me, do these 3 people on our team, these 3 women, make you feel that way? And I said, no, the complete opposite. And he's like, exactly, because they value your worth. Those other women do not. Get around the ones that value your worth versus the ones who don't, because look how much more you're propelling getting around others that view your worth. But furthermore in that, we have to be willing to realize our worth for ourselves first, because we can't just be dependent on those around us to lift us up and to help us see our greatness. We have to be willing to see that for ourselves first, and then put boundaries into place, then have those conversations. But if you don't even know the path that you're going on, you have to start with that first. Start with yourself first. And I realize that this can be a very hard thing to do, because we often know intuitively some people need to leave our lives, but these can be really, really hard conversations. So again, I just want to preface and normalize and validate the importance of being kind with yourself through this process. And again, obviously, this is subjective to your life, your mission, your goals, your aspirations, how you view your life. And even in listening to this, you might be going, I thought the people in my life were super awesome, but now I'm realizing maybe they're not as awesome as they could be. Just like relationships, we always say, don't settle in our relationships. But I think we're often talking about our romantic relationships, and we're not realizing that our friendships have just as much weight in our lives as our romantic relationships. And so, again, for me, I knew I had to get around dream chasers, because it's where I feel the most validated, seen, appreciated, and understood. It's the room in which I feel the most elevated, right? It's like athletes getting around other athletes. They're like, tell me about your macros, tell me about your workout, tell me about your journey. It's like you just get it, you thrive, you identify, you feel collected as a community. And again, this doesn't mean we are all the same community, nor are we supposed to. But if your passion is soccer and you're hanging in a room with a bunch of radio hosts, you might not be in the right room for your value. So you need to get around soccer players that value your skill in soccer, not around people that are looking for other radio people, if that makes sense. I thought of that on the fly, but I'm just trying to explain that know what room you're in, know what room you want to be in, and ask yourself if the way you want to feel in that room is how you feel around the people you're with right now. Because who and what we give our attention to matters. And just like anything in life, it starts by getting to know yourself first, as I mentioned. And how will you know these people aren't in alignment if you don't know your own values, beliefs, and interests? And so ask yourself, do I feel I'm my best self around this person, around said people? Do these people give me hard but necessary truths? Do these people support me? Boundaries will be crucial, as I've mentioned. And I'm not saying to go and cut everybody out of your life. I'm challenging you to begin to look at the 5 people you spend the most time with and notice how they're affecting your life. Because I'm telling you, listener, with every ounce of me, those people are influencing you whether you realize it or not. They are. Everybody we surround ourselves with plays a role in how we act and how we show up. And do not forget that and do not underestimate that. And again, the reason I wanted to do this episode is because this is the first time in my life, and I'm almost 24 years old, where I feel like I'm finally around people that care about me and that want to see the best for me and want to see me elevate and grow. If I'm being quite honest, I feel like everybody in my life before this, to some degree, didn't want Jessie to become the best version of herself. They were okay with me just being mediocre, because as soon as I start to elevate and their light starts to dim, guess what? They get to bring me down because I'm getting too bright. And I don't say any of this to sound egotistical or to sound hardcore. I say it because after getting this awareness, I'm like, I would be doing a disservice to you guys listening to not know my truth, because you also have that within you. And you also have those people that I promise you are watching you and are envious of you and are jealous of you, and they just don't want to tell you. And I'm going to be that hard voice. I'm learning that if I don't speak my truth and say these hard realizations I'm having, what's the point of coming on here and speaking my authentic truth? I would be doing a big disservice by telling you that everybody just loves you and everybody looks up to you and everybody wants to be like you and you're so great and like everybody wants you to be your best. Everybody is encouraging of you, because it's not true. We get envious, we get jealous, but we don't take action. And you might be on the flip side of this. You might be doing this to somebody else and not even realizing it. And I also want to highlight that personal accountability of how you're also treating other people matters. Because maybe you are that friend to somebody who is not lifting them up, who is not encouraging them, who is causing them to do things that they don't want to do. And you guilt trip them into doing it, or you influence them into doing it, or make them feel bad or whatever. We got to stop doing that too. We have to stop trying to tell people how to live their lives. Stop dimming people's lights. Let's all encourage and lift each other up and see each other's worth. Can you imagine if instead of us all feeling like we're at competition with each other, we lifted each other up? Can you imagine a world that we would live in? It's like there's millions of memes on the internet about how girls just want to take each other out and guys are just go with the flow, don't really care. But it's no. It's our society as a stinking whole, right? When we see someone who's rich and famous or whatever, we don't see the hard work that goes into that. All we get is jealous and envious of them. Oh, must be nice. It's are you showing up every day and doing the work? When's the last time you picked up a book? When's the last time you went to the gym? When's the last time you changed your diet? When's the last time you did personal development? Do you have a coach? Do you have a therapist? Are you working on yourself? We're so quick to judge other people and to get envious and jealous of other people. But if we're not actually doing the work, we need to zip it. And I've done this before. Oh my gosh, have I done this before? I feel sorry for myself, so I'm going to take it out on everybody else around me. I don't share this because I think I'm perfect. I share this because I've done it. I've been that person. And guess what? All that does is lower your own vibe, your own frequency, your own law of attraction. All that's doing is messing with yourself. Because that person that's rich and doing great, they don't care. They're going to keep going, especially if they believe in what they're doing. So ask yourself these hard questions. Which side of this am I on? Do I feel like and I don't like using the word victim, but do I feel like I'm on the side of the friendship that I feel my light's being dimmed? Or do I feel like I'm on the side of a friendship that I feel like I'm dimming the light of those around me? Because this really does come from both sides. And I didn't want to dismiss that side of it, because maybe you listening are the one dimming other people's lights. And maybe you don't even realize that you're doing it, because sometimes we do it subconsciously. We don't really realize the impact that could be having. But even, for example, I'll be invited out and I'll have to say no because I'm recording or I'm focusing on something else. And when I set a non-negotiable with myself, I don't miss because I know that that's only going to affect my self-worth, my goals, my mission long term. So I'll say no. And I can tell just in someone's answer if they're in alignment. If they give me a hard time about it or they make me feel guilty about it, I'm like, okay, cool. This made me not want to go even more. But if they're like, oh, that's super awesome, no worries, like let me know when you're done or when another time would work. I'm like, heck to the yes, this person is awesome. They get it and they still want to see me. Like, that person is right for me. And these can be really hard conversations. And this took me almost 2 years to be able to get to this place. So know that I get it. And I know that saying no is one of the hardest things in the world. But my friend, I promise you that anytime you put aside your own needs for somebody else, A, you're going to burn out. But B, you're only jeopardizing your own future self's success and happiness for someone's short-term satisfaction. And so I truly, truly hope that today's episode is just allowing you to reflect. Reflect on the people you're surrounding yourself with. Are they the 5 people that you think can actually help you get to your end result and your dream life? Do these people make you feel whole? Do these people elevate you? Do they challenge you? Do they make you want to become better when you're around them? Do you find yourself feeling better after you hang out with them versus feeling worse and feeling lower? These are all crucial questions that we all have to begin to ask ourselves. And I know that today's episode is more of a hardcore one. And I think that I've just realized, and I'm leaning into on my podcast, I don't want to BS you guys. I don't want to jump around things and like pretend like everything's just going to be okay. Everything's going to be easy. Everything's going to be fine, because it's like, that doesn't do anything except for make us resent those that talk like that, because it's not relatable and it's not true. I'm sharing things with you because I've had massive, massive lonely pain in my life. And now that I'm finally around people that make me feel good and seen, and I can literally feel my emotions flood even talking about this, because for so long I just thought there was something wrong with me. Like I was the problem. And again, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I'm realizing that I've just been surrounded by people who are and were intimidated by my greatness. And again, I know that that can sound so egotistical to say, but I just know it in my heart that that's true, because now I'm around people that don't make me feel even an ounce of that. And it's allowing me to lean more into being my organic self, helping other people know that you can find that too. And you're worthy to find that. And it can be lonely sometimes in that in-between phase. I know it can be lonely, but just know that it's worth it, and know that you're worthy to have good people in your life, aligned people in your life, supportive people in your life. So stop allowing those not in alignment to dim your light, and get around people that brighten your light, because we need more bright lights in this world. We all need to shine a little bit brighter and just tap into our unique, amazing, incredible selves. But we can't do that if we're in a dark room and surrounded by darkness. So I also just want to preface that if you're feeling this way, I did just start a Facebook page. It's called the Rewire to Inspire Family. I'm kind of still working on the name right now. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. Also, feel free to send me a message on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. Send me a message on Facebook. Jessie Brown is my name on Facebook. If you'd like to get into that community, because that is exactly my goal of this community, is for dream chasers and goal chasers and folks who just want to become the best version of themselves, to know that there are like-minded people out there. There are people in alignment out there. And so I created this page exactly for those who feel that they don't really have a sense of community. They don't really have a sense of family, a sense of belonging, a sense of friends. You are welcomed, you are seen, you are appreciated just as you are. Any and everybody is welcome. There is a no negative policy. So if anybody is being negative or is tearing anybody down, you will be removed from the group. So if you'd like to be a part of that community, my promise to you guys is to post every single day and for us to just grow and evolve together. So I truly, truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, number 67. My heart is so full, and I just feel the need to just take a big exhale after today's episode, because honestly, today was one that was hard for me to record, because I know that these things can be sometimes taken out of proportion, but it's not my goal to make anybody upset or to do anything other than to reflect on your own life, to excel and propel you forward, because you're so deserving of living an optimal life, and we really do only get one chance at this earth, so we might as well surround ourselves with people that make us feel good, not around people that make us feel crummy and less than. So you're so worthy. I'm so proud of you. So much love for each and every one of you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for episode number 67. I look forward to chatting with you guys on Thursday. Until then, mwah, have a great day, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.